Hi friends, this is Trish and welcome to Teacher Therapy. Back by popular demand, we have secret agent Mr. Peterson, and he really wants to encourage you guys with 10 tips for new teachers or even teachers that are just struggling. So let's find out from secret agent Mr. Peterson, how has your school year been so far? How have students been? What has the admin been like? What's going on in your world?
Okay, so I'll make it as quick as I can. It's still basically just as bad. I want to say this year the student body is a little bit better, and admin is jumping on that as an opportunity to say, everyone can just, relax, not stress out because all of these dysfunctional initiatives that we're implementing are working, and they don't realize that, you're just getting lucky right now because the new crop of students haven't figured out yet that you guys have no backbone and that there's no consequence yet. And as soon as they figure that out, then in full throttle, just like it has been before, it's going to be the same. And I was contacted a couple days before school started and told that I was cleared to return to school, and they never gave me a reason why I was on leave. They still haven't given me any official reason, and I'm supposed to just show up at school every day, I guess, and just accept this. And I keep bringing it up, and they keep ignoring me. And it's a really, really bad system. I still fully intend to place myself in a cannon and shoot out as far away from the public education system as I possibly can, as soon as I can. But I decided that I was going to put a top 10 list together of just, I guess, what I went through and what I think will be most helpful for any teacher who's going into the profession, because the profession in itself really is actually fulfilling work if you are, I guess, under the right conditions. If you are supported well, and if you have what you need to function in a classroom well, then I don't see any reason why anybody wouldn't want to do it. But in today's world, I'm afraid I can't really be an advocate for that. So if I may, I liken this to, let me give everyone a quick biblical kind of like little Bible study lesson. So whenever you ask someone what their favorite book of the Bible is, you'll often hear the staple responses. You'll hear John or Mark sometimes, or Philippians or things like that. And if you're talking to a real zealot, you might hear Revelation, or something like that. But I've always had a real soft spot for the Proverbs, and even more so, my actual favorite book of the Bible is Ecclesiastes. And for those who don't know what Ecclesiastes is, you don't hear this answer a lot. Proverbs is portrayed in the Bible as a wise woman on a hill that is a beacon of light that you look to when you want to access the wisdom of God. And Ecclesiastes is kind of is like a middle-aged critic, a guy who's saying, you think how everything's going to work out. Well, let me tell you something different, And while Ecclesiastes, that middle-aged critic is a guy who, he does say that the Proverbs are correct and they're true and it's important to observe them. But he also says this is what's actually going to go down in the nitty-gritty, the actual tough, rough grit part of life. And what makes it interesting is Proverbs was written by King Solomon. And for those who don't know, King Solomon was the wisest and richest man ever on earth, even by today's standards. I mean, this guy had more money, wealth, land, livestock, women, you name it. You name it, he had it in full effect and with extra and plenty. And he went through kind of he decided to put himself through every experience that he possibly could. He thought he'd be fulfilled in life with learning and books, and found out that was empty. He tried women and found out that was empty. He tried a hedonistic life of, I guess, what today would be the equivalent of drugs and alcohol, and found out that was just empty and meaningless and hevel, and like smoke is the actual word that's used in Ecclesiastes. So I want to bring to you guys this top 10 list as an Ecclesiastes, from an Ecclesiastes scope, where I'm saying, yes, it's still true that these ideals and these tenets that we use in teaching about having a positive attitude and, like having a close connection and creating that spark with students and blah, 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 all that stuff is still true. But there's going to be this other side to things too that I think everyone should definitely know about. So, yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and dive in then. Go for it. The stage is yours, Secret Agent Peterson.
Well, thank you. And thank you, by the way, to everyone who's checking out the videos on teacher therapy, and, especially the ones that I've been on. I see a lot of people say, Peterson's awesome, we'll have him back and stuff. And that's really cool. So I'll go ahead and rattle off what the top 10 are, and then I'll go over each one here. So number 1 is present the need. Number 2 is learn to say no, which includes turning off the switch that you have for your work-life balance. Number 3 is good teachers can teach on a whim. Great teachers have a plan. Number 4, keep good records and never handle money. Number 5, teach as if your salary was a reflection of how much your students would refer to your lessons when they're adults. Number 6, consistency is key / practice what you preach. Number 7 is the 80-20 rule. Number 8, zero tolerance for defiance, disrespect, profanity, disruptions, challenging authority, etc. Number 9, there's no school like the old school. And number 10, hold everyone accountable. So let's start here on number 1, present the need. This is the one that I have found is the most helpful in all of my years of teaching, being in the room. And it kind of seems obvious at first, and it would make a lot more sense if I could tell you what subject I teach. But let me just say that the closest distant cousin of my subject would be like, let's say, fencing or martial arts. Okay, so what I would do if I was a teacher and I was teaching martial arts is I'd have a student coming up to the front of the room, and I'd say, okay, try to hit me. And then they would try to hit you, and you would do whatever you need to do to get out of it, and bring another student up, do the same thing, and you would actually show live in action how that subject matter works. And when you have something like martial arts or fencing or something, there's a natural, immediate kind of interest in that subject where everyone recognizes, okay, you're the guy who knows how to do this, and if I want to learn how to do it, now it establishes that teacher-student relationship immediately, and it's all because you present the need. The student needs to know why they have to know that information. That's really so. Some people say, well, okay, well, what about math? Because math isn't as sexy, as martial arts, or it isn't as exciting as all these other subjects. And yes, that's true. That is a small problem. But me, for example, if I were teaching math, I would, and when I say present the need, I mean present the need in the practical sense and also the philosophical sense. So, if I were presenting math on a practical level, I would literally open up my E-Trade account in front of the entire class, and I would make $150 in 4 or 5 minutes right in front of them. And they would say, whoa, how'd you do that? And I would say, well, you got to be quick, and you got to be accurate, and you got to know what you're looking for. You got to be able to calculate in your head right away, and there's different things you need to anticipate, and you're going to have a knowledge of graphs and blah blah blah. Now I would give them the practical application right there in front of them and show them how you can make some good cash doing that. And then I would go into the philosophical, talking about the beauty and elegance of mathematics, especially when you're looking at graphs or things like calculus, when you can predict things that are showing up in the future, and you can and how mankind has this real sort of reverence for that kind of consistency that only mathematics can provide. Whatever you would say, I would have a practical and a philosophical presentation of the need in class. Very, very, very important. Now, I will say in my subject matter, I can show the students how they need what I'm showing them, and it takes 5 seconds maximum. 5 seconds watching me do what I do, and the students immediately know why they need that and know that they want to do it. So there are other subjects that don't quite have that advantage. An English teacher is not really going to have that advantage, but there are ways that you can show them in a practical sense why you would need something like that. If someone were to ask me, when it comes to something like reading, and you explain to someone the access that is opened up for you, the more you know how to read and the more you know how to write, and that writing means clear thinking made visible. So when I read what you have written down, and if I read it out loud and you can't understand what I'm saying, that means inside your mind you are unclear. Just generally speaking all around, and you don't want people to think that you are a person who's unclear mentally. So I don't know, I'm just kind of tossing this out, but that's what comes to mind when I talk about presenting the need.
Love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So the next one, number 2, learn to say no. And of course, this really is advice for anybody. It doesn't particularly pertain to teaching, but I guess it probably shows up a lot more maybe in teaching. I'm not sure. An example of me saying no is when a lot of people talk about how teachers are way underpaid, because of all the stuff they do outside of class, or teaching in summer school, or preparing in summertime, or whatever, all the extra stuff that teachers do. My day stops exactly at 3:20 p.m. and does not begin again until 7:55 the next day. Like that is my work-life balance. And I'm approached usually in the beginning part of the year with like, okay, well, we need you guys to work together and figure out how we're going to get these concession stands covered and blah blah blah. And they're always asking you to volunteer for this stuff, and the answer is just simply no. Not until the campus is under control and we actually feel like there's fulfillment in our careers. There's just no way. And I know if you're a new teacher and you're in your probationary period, you don't really have this option, so don't take this advice yet, but definitely learn to say no a lot when you become a teacher. And yes, you're going to feel a little bit like a jerk when you're first training yourself to do this, but eventually it's just going to be effortless. They're going to come to you, well, we need you to blah blah blah. Nope, not doing it. And eventually they figure out that you're just kind of that that you're that crotchety teacher that doesn't want to be involved and blah blah blah, and let them think whatever they want, but you need to protect yourself and your own work-life balance. It's just that simple.
Absolutely.
Number 3 is one that I learned in my credential program, oddly enough, because I would say I did not learn much in my credential program, but one of the few things that I did learn in my credential program was a teacher who said to the class, good teachers can teach on a whim, great teachers always have a plan. And this is definitely true from my experience. I would say try as much as you can to have a plan for every contingency. And something just as simple as, in my classroom, one of the things I require every day is a pencil. You can't get by without a pencil. And there's students that just wouldn't do it. So I would have, a big bucket of pencils at the front of the room, and I would tell them at the beginning of the year, this is the bucket of pencils for the year. If you forget to put your pencil back and every day it dwindles down more and more and more, by the time November or December comes around, if the canister is empty, then I start deducting points for people not having their pencils. And so it was kind of a I don't know, what would you call it? A test to see how long they could go if they could make it through the entire year, keeping pencils in the canister. For the first few months, everyone grabs a pencil and they put it back on their way out. And then inevitably by the time January, February rolls around, the canister is empty, and now I'm starting to mark down people for having a pencil. But the routine now was there. They understood now that you need to have your pencil every day. But I'm just saying little things here and there that you can have a plan for is going to make everything easier for you, from a what would you call it? Kind of like a logistical basis, but also the impression that you give as someone who's in control, and the authority that you have when you have a plan for all of this stuff is really important.
Definitely.
Which sort of segues well into number 4, which is keep good records and never, and I'm going to say this 3 times, never handle money. Like, it will bury you if you handle money. And I'm talking about just $2 or $3. All it takes is a very small amount and some kind of problem or something going wrong, and it will absolutely ruin your career. Never handle money. So before I get to that point, I'll talk about good records. So records, and I say keep good records not only for your own protection, but also to be perceived as, having everything in order and under control. It's critical to project your authority in this manner. So, of course you have to have good records with grades, but I mean things that you wouldn't normally think you would have to keep a record of, people that you talked to on a certain day and what time and, what the topic was about. You don't have to be all neurotic about it, and try to memorize every word that was said, but generally speaking, have a log of this kind of stuff. And even if it means, certain things happening in class and something that you think might come up later on, just really good records. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to look super professional. It could just be a tablet that you have on your desk or something that with a bunch of scribbled things that you can organize later, whatever, right? But you gotta have really good records, which was something that I neglected quite a bit my first year or 2 of teaching, which I probably wouldn't blame you if you did as well, because you're going to be pretty overwhelmed with everything in your first year or 2. But that's one thing that will kind of secure a little bit of your sanity if you can remember to do this, is just keep records, even of the stuff that you screwed up on. Make sure you know the day and the time and the details. And the other half of this advice is never, I know this is not exactly the same exact thing as keeping records, but never ever handle money. Never. All money that you should be handling should always be going through whatever official process exists on the campus, whether that means go through the office or sometimes it's like a student body organization or whatever. But never take like if you're planning some kind of project or field trip and everyone in the class has to pay you like $14 or something and you're taking it at your desk and stuff. I mean, you are begging for a nightmare if you do that. And yeah, I've had things where I've had to deal with projects and stuff like that. And I found that out my first year. I mean, I think there was something that happened in, I don't know, 4 or 5 students in the class. They didn't get accounted for. And, and I was taking money and doing my own account or something like that. And it was only like $4 or $5 each, but it's not even so much that they care about the amount of money that's quote unquote missing. It's the cavity that exists, in the system that everyone is going to throw up all kinds of red flags for. And that is a situation you do not want to find yourself in. It is horrible, horrible. I had another time where it was a big field trip and there was, kind of like a booster club. And luckily it didn't even have anything to do with me, but, the parents who were organizing this big field trip, they lost a big old stack of checks for like 2 months, and it was turning into an investigation with the police and all kinds of stuff. And thank God they found it. Like 2 months later, it ended up like falling behind some parent's desk or something who was collecting all of it. But I'm telling you, if I was in the middle of that thing, oh my God, the never-ending headache and nightmare that would have ensued. So you do not want to do that. Again, this is coming from a kind of an Ecclesiastes, perspective. They're saying, yes, all of the Proverbs are very wise and important to follow through on, but you better listen to this other wisdom too, because this stuff does show up in the real world. Okay, so this one is kind of a neat one. Number 5, teach as if your salary was a reflection of how much your students would refer to your lessons when they are adults. And I've always said this: if I was running an education system, I would be paying my teachers. If I was, the principal or the person who hired everybody, I would be paying my teachers based on what their students say, about their lessons. So, for example, if I was hiring a teacher who is a 25-year-old veteran, well, I would be calling up 4 or 5 dozen of that teacher's students and asking how much of this teacher's lessons and influence is in your life today. And if they say, everything that guy taught me, I still use today, I would know that's a valuable teacher. But if I call them all up and they're like, I kind of remember him, but whatever, I was like, I don't really remember much about his class, and I don't use anything that he said today. I'd be like, okay, well, I'm basically going to pay him like a brand new teacher, and even if you're a brand new teacher and you're amazing, if you have no clientele essentially for me to talk to, then how would I ever know how good you are? I'm going to have to watch you for the next couple of years. So my point is, if you are teaching in your class every day, pretend that 10, 15 years from now, someone's going to call every student in that class and ask how much your lessons have an influence in their life, which I can tell you without doubt, in my class, I know with certainty that, a great deal of my students use a lot of my lessons every day, well beyond high school and college. So that's how I teach myself. When I'm in the room with the students and I'm dealing with all the headaches and all of the issues that I have, I just pretend that someone someday is going to be calling all of them. And it sort of helps. Number 6, consistency is key / practice what you preach. So for example, my cell phone policy in the classroom is there is absolutely no cell phone use whatsoever. I'm saying if it's even in your pocket, it counts as in your hand and it goes to the office. I don't care who you are. I don't care how cute your smile is. If I see your phone in your hand, in your pocket, on your desk, whatever, it goes to the office. Bye-bye. And if I ever get caught with my cell phone on my desk, texting on my phone, I am screwed, and I should be, and you should be too. If you have a policy in your classroom and you break that policy, you deserve every headache that follows from it. So consistency is key, and practice what you preach. I've heard people talk about a very common phrase, or turn of phrase in teaching is don't smile until Labor Day. And I always thought that was kind of a lame rule. I was like, I don't really know if that's necessary, but yeah, it is. So I've discovered, you have to be consistent with your rules and your policy, and you have to be that bulldog, the enforcer in your room all the way until Labor Day. And if you decide that you do want to relax on anything, it has to be much further down the line. There's just no other way to say it. The biggest stonewall that you can give regarding classroom management is your consistency. If you have a rule, make sure that you're willing to stick with that thing for a long time, and make sure you're consistent universally in your room with all of your students. It is very tempting to relax your rules with a student that is really pleasant and a student that is an all-around good kid. It's very tempting, but if you don't want to do that. I mean, I assure you, and it sort of kills me sometimes, because I've had students that are just sweethearts, and I have to give them the same treatment as everyone else, and it sucks. But if you don't do that, you are going to hate. Yeah. Headaches will ensue like you can't believe. Number 7 is the 80-20 rule. And this was another one that I always thought was kind of like being a jerk, but actually it really is true that this rule is the most compassionate rule for your entire class. And that is, spend 80% of your time on your top 20 students. And people say, well, wait a minute, that sounds really unfair. And the way I've always kind of framed it in class was, every normal person in this world, if you want to go and learn something, you have to actually get money and hire, a teacher or a tutor, or there's always an exchange where I want to learn this and you have to pay for it. Well, here you're in school, you don't have to pay for it with money because it's public school. So you have to pay me in attention. And that's actually where the term pay attention comes from. Because, if I see you paying me in your attention, that's how I'm going to know where to direct my effort to. And you are going to basically be left with kind of 2 scenarios. You're going to have, you're going to have your top 20 students. And when I say top 20, I don't particularly mean academically, it's more in just attention, but they tend to go hand in hand. The ones that pay you the most attention and the most enthusiastic usually end up being on the top, but not always. But you're going to have kind of one of 2 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is you're going to have students who aren't in the top 20% who are going to notice that the students who are getting all of your effort and all of your time, are the ones who are paying the most attention. And then they're going to start kind of fighting those other students for that attention. And you're going to constantly have a room of students who are trying to get that effort and trying to get that attention from you. And that's a good thing. And there you are going to have students that don't want anything to do with you, and it's never going to matter how much time and effort and energy you put into them. You're just throwing it out the window. And I'm sorry, that's the sad truth. This is the Ecclesiastes truth. You are throwing your time and your energy and your effort out the window, spending it on students who don't want anything to do with you, don't want anything to do with your class. There is no amount of kissing their butt that's going to turn that around. And so that's scenario number 1. And then, scenario number 2 is you're spending time on the students that really deserve it. Like when you spend 80% of your time on that top 20% of the students, of your room, you're going to have, your lower ended students, your 50-60% students who are going to be getting peppered in all of your time and energy trying to get to those top slots. And then the students who really deserve that effort in the first place are the ones who are going to get it. So it really does win-win for everybody, because the students that are not really giving you their full attention in the first place but still sort of want it, they're going to get what they deserve. But it's going to become clear when you have that top 20% section where to spend your time. And some people kind of think that's really being a jerk, but actually you are benefiting the most people that you can with the time that you have doing so.
Okay, I have questions.
Yeah.
So in my experience, the kids with the worst behavior would be the kids, that don't want anything to do with the class, and maybe they don't like the teacher. So what does that look like practically if all of your misbehaving students aren't in the top 20% and you feel like all of your energy and attention is having to manage the behavior of these worst behaved students, while there's a small section of kids that really do want to learn and they care, but it feels like all your energy is going to, the ones that are acting crazy? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that is a good one. So when I say don't give them any attention, I don't mean ignore them. You definitely have to face those kind of problems directly. And I would insist, that the policy of campus be carried out in the office, and, let's just say you have a kid that likes to throw things across the room, which is a gigantic no-no for me. I would send them to the office and explain, with the message of what they're doing, call the parents, yada, 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 all the little procedures they want you to do. And, I guess it depends on if you're a middle school or high school as well, because the students can be taken out of different classes. So if you're in that scenario, or if you're at that level, then yeah, eventually you want to get them taken out of your class. And if you're at the elementary level, man, I don't really know. Sorry, I don't really have an answer for that one. I mean, I would think, jeez, I haven't really tried this at the elementary level. I would think and I would hope that if you address that behavior directly, you contact the parents, you let the office know that there's some kind of punitive punishment process, that it would be corrected for most students pretty quickly. And if not, then yeah, really it might actually come down to pretty much ignoring them, and making it clear to the student that they're not getting any what do you call it? There's
prioritization.
Yeah, none at all. Like they're like until they shape up, you won't even look at them. Short of them actually hurting somebody or damaging anything in your room. I mean, that's what I would do. But I mean, I haven't really applied this at the elementary level. So if there's anyone that wants to give it a shot, you let me know.
No, I totally understand what you mean. I actually had this conversation with a set of parents when I taught fourth grade. Actually, in my first 2 years of teaching, believe it or not. And I was super honest with the parents because they had a kid that wanted to do absolutely nothing. He wouldn't pay attention, wouldn't do his work. But after all the lesson was done, he was wanting me to essentially reteach the lesson personally to him. And the parents were expecting me to do that. And I said, I'm sorry, but no, I'm prioritizing the students that were actively trying to pay attention during the lesson, taking notes, asking questions. I'm working with them to genuinely help them understand. I'm not going to reteach an entire lesson every single day to your child because he feels like he's not going to pay attention. So I get where you're going with that one for sure.
Yeah, that's just outrageous. And there really is a problem nationwide. I'm sure that it's the elephant in the room that we need to have a qualification process for what is allowed to be in school, like code of conduct. And like, yes, people have a handbook that they send home of things that they expect, but I'm talking about like what actually qualifies, because there are some things that if you do, you're out. And really that would be the solution to, at the elementary level as well as the middle school and high school level, where if there's some kind of repeat behavior, or vile, offensive conduct or bullying or anything like that, you're out. You're out of the school, and that's something that most districts are, with every fiber of their being, trying to avoid today for some god awful reason. I don't know, but number 8. You must have a zero tolerance policy for defiance, disrespect, profanity, disruptions, challenging authority, etc. You are the one that controls the frame for your career. And another way that I've heard this is, what offends you defines you, and what you tolerate you invite. So if if you tolerate being treated like a doormat, it's like just giving every student an admit 1 ticket as they walk in and say, you just go to town when you come in my room. And this includes undermining from the administration. That is, I am including that when it comes to disrespect and defiance and challenging authority and disrupting your class. Like, yeah, you must have a zero tolerance policy for that, because if you don't, you essentially are the one responsible for these headaches in your career when they come up. It is very much like a cavity in a tooth that will only get bigger and will only become a very, very big problem. So number 9. There's no school like the old school. And what I mean by that is really try to combat this avalanche of what is considered kind of an exciting sort of technological period in our evolution. It's just not going to work. I mean, everyone's so excited that all the students are getting a Chromebook or all the students are getting a tablet. And whoop-de-doo, look at us, look how smart we are. It's not working. The tablets and the Chromebooks is the equivalent of pictures in a novel. And it might work, you might not be too disappointed in a child if they're, 6 or 7 years old and they don't want to read a book because it doesn't have pictures. But when you meet a 25-year-old and you say, have you read this book? And they'll, well, does it have pictures in it? I mean, well, seriously, what would you think about that person? Like, that is what all these Chromebooks and tablets are doing to all these students every year. And my own personal children, they calculate on an abacus and they hated me for that for the first 6-7 months or so. But you should see them now. Click, 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 click. They can calculate faster than any other students that I've seen. They write out by hand. Yes, they still write out in cursive, because they're homeschooled, and we have them actually learn the nuts and bolts of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And everyone's talking about all the headaches that are going to come from AI, and people writing their term papers with AI and stuff. And colleges now are actually having to whip out the old blue books, the old composition books. And that's why I keep saying there's no school like the old school, because AI, I'm sure, is a wonderful tool, but it's going to be a crutch just like anything else, just like a calculator, just like all the other stuff that we've been warned about all through growing up in school. And you're going to really find out what someone's got within them if you put down a piece of paper and a pencil and you make them write. And you're going to find out how clear their mind works when they actually have to sit down and pull that off. Because the thing about writing, for example, is what a lot of people don't realize is if you're writing a paragraph, it takes 4.5, 5 minutes to write a paragraph, and you have to maintain in order in your mind what you want to write about by the time that paragraph's over. And a lot of people forget about that when it comes to students that have attention span of 15, 20 seconds. They're not able to write a whole paragraph without someone spoon feeding it in front of them, or without using some kind of crutch like AI or something. And that unclear thinking is really going to manifest itself in the real world in the near future, with people who are actually hired to perform tasks that require longer term thinking than 15 seconds. And it's going to be a very, very big problem. That's why I'm saying there's no school like the old school. People think that rote learning is beneath them. And they don't realize that if you don't take the time to repeat over and over and over again your times tables, you will not be able to quickly activate these numbers that you need to know if you ever want to do any kind of higher level mathematics. And if you ever plan on doing anything, even if you're not doing higher level mathematics for a class, just doing something in real life that's going to require that quick access, that is not going to be there. And you're always going to be that doofus walking around, dude, what's 7 times 3? And then just give me a minute while I work all this out. While there's 19 people waiting in line, waiting for something to get done. It's just not going to work. It is not going to work. You are not going to have AI wiping your booty everywhere you go for the rest of your life. And if you do, what's going to happen if it gets shut off or there's no internet for a couple hours or whatnot? You are totally, hopelessly screwed. So there is no school like the old school. Try anything else. You're just an old fool. And
Love it.
Yeah. And then finally, number 10, hold everyone accountable. And by that, I mean your students all the way up to the school board and beyond, even if you need to go to your state capitol. I don't care. Everyone's got to be held accountable. Right now, everyone loves to point to the teacher. The teacher is the easiest one to beat up because it's the one that it's the one that, of course, the students are going to point at. The parents nowadays are going to take the side of their child. And the administrators are so terrified of their own freaking shadow that they're going to keep, burdening the teachers with all the things that are supposed to be their job. When the school board kind of comes down on the administrators and say, why aren't things working? Oh, because the teachers aren't implementing our dysfunctional policies. And when they do implement their dysfunctional policies, no one's ever around long enough to hear, that it didn't work because, all the administrators either fall up the stairs and fail upwards somewhere else or get moved around, to some other school. So no one's ever sticking around long enough to find out that it's not working. And then, so if you got to see it. Mr. Peterson's at these school board meetings every month and like, oh, it's this guy again, bringing up all these other issues. And so, they know me well when I'm at these school board meetings and I'm bringing up all this stuff. And, I don't know, it might actually get to the point where, it hits the state capitol or something like that. I don't really know. But I do know that even if it never actually makes change happen, I want everyone to know who I am and why I keep showing up to these meetings. And I want to make sure that if they don't start, straightening up and flying right, I'm going to make them famous on YouTube or whatever I got to do. Like, I'm holding everyone accountable. I'm not accepting any kind of dysfunction from the administration or the school board or the students or the parents. I am expected to conduct myself as a professional. I expect everyone else to do the same. So there you go. There's Mr. Peterson's list of Ecclesiastes, top 10 list for wisdom in the classroom. What do you think? What do you like?
Love it.
Oh, cool.
You're very inspiring, Mr. Peterson, and I have had so many people say like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for Mr. Peterson to have his own YouTube channel. And so you've got a big crowd rooting for you. And I just think it's awesome that you have found a way to maintain your integrity and maintain your own values within this system. And I know that there's been times, especially last year, that you wondered, like, are they going to fire you? Are they cutting down your hours? They randomly put you on leave with no explanation. So there can be costs to sticking with your integrity and your vision, but at the same time, you're still here and you're still going and you're able to inspire so many other people. So thank you so much for that awesome list. Any final parting words for us?
I forgot to read from Ecclesiastes. It's one of my favorite scriptures. I'll go ahead and do it real quick when he's talking about the difference between Ecclesiastes and Proverbs, basically. And it's going to be, you're going to feel kind of the same way as a teacher. So this is him saying, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not always to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. So he's basically saying, even if you know the true wisdom of being a teacher in a classroom and all the things that we're told to do, have a positive attitude and, blah, 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 just be aware that there's just going to be some grind, nitty gritty part of life during this stuff and I'm hoping to equip you with some of those things that are going to, maintain your sanity and keep your career fulfilled in your life.
Awesome. Well, to my audience, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions at all for Secret Agent Mr. Peterson, I'm sure he'll be checking the comments and he'll be happy to interact with you guys. And if you have any video ideas for the future, just type them out and let me know. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks.